Welcome back to my Tremors review series. This is Tremors 2. I'm reviewing all six so far. I'm going to be reviewing all of them, but six so far Tremors films. First time watches, never seen any of them. Just finished reviewing Tremors 1, so if you want to check out that video first, go for it. It's on my channel, and we're here to talk about the second entry, the first direct-to-video sequel in this 7-movie franchise, I'm pretty sure. And one TV show. But I'm not going to be doing the series. I'm only doing the films. We have Earl coming back into this. Val is taking a step out in this one. I don't think Kevin Bacon, from my recollection and what I've heard, shows up in any sequel at all. Even the show. I think he's done. I think they asked him to come back for a show from something I read. But that show didn't end up happening, so it didn't happen with him. But I'm pretty sure he's in none of these, if I'm not mistaken. The rest, I mean. But Earl is in this one, and he plays our main character in this. This is a few years after the first one. And he's hanging out kind of low-key in some, like, farmhouse kind of thing. He owns a ranch, owns a bunch of land, and he's kind of, you know, living the retired life kind of thing. And he's approached by this guy named Grady, and Grady comes along. Grady's coming from Mexico, and apparently the grabbers, or the graboids, are wreaking havoc in this guy Grady's oil rig company kind of thing. He works for this guy named Ortega, and Ortega is having these problems where all his workers are being eaten by these graboids, and they know of Earl and the legend of Earl, and how Earl fought off 3 graboids years before, so Grady is sent to ask him to come help out with the situation, offers him 50 grand per graboid killed, which is a hell of a lot of money, and this kind of incites Earl to think about it, and it doesn't take too long for Earl to think about it, and he does, and then he goes to Mexico to fight off these graboids. When they get there, he's also offered double the money if he's able to capture one alive. So that kind of entices him even more. And it's kind of just like an optional thing. But what he's there for mainly is to get rid of them all, or as many as he can, and clear out the area kind of thing. So he meets this woman named Kate, and he falls for Kate pretty quickly. And she's working amongst this company as well. And him and Grady, I wanted to say Gary, Grady go off and try and do their best to defeat these worms. They come up with an idea of using remote control cars, which I found really funny, how they strap bombs to remote control cars to get into the worms and blow them up. The practical effects are back, which is great. That's one comment that I will give for the positive of this film, is that they continued with the practical effects on the worms. This doesn't really feel like a direct-to-video sequel. It's definitely high on the budget for what it is. I think I gave this a 3.5. I could be mistaken, but this film is like produced well. It's not a terribly cheap looking film. It looks like a movie. It feels like a movie. I guess it didn't go to theaters for whatever reason, because it didn't have the budget or the marketing or whatnot, but whatever the reason, it still feels and looks like a well-produced film. But it has some things that I just didn't appreciate. One of the biggest things and one of the biggest issues about this film is that it has lost all of its charm. All the charm that was in the first film, this film is void of it. It's just empty. It is just a simple, sometimes boring, to be honest, action, like creature feature kind of thing. It's alright. Earl's still hilarious. And practical worms make it, you know, another star up. But it's missing the charm of the first film. And then the other thing that I really have a gripe on is they wanted to make a change, and I appreciate that, but they bring in this new evolved creature. And at one point in the movie, they find this worm, and it's like it looks sick. It looks like it's dying kind of thing. And they come up with the brilliant idea of capturing this one alive because then they get the $100,000 for this one kept alive, right? It ends up dying off and then it ends up essentially mutating into another creature. And I look at this creature and I had the same effect I had when I was a teen watching Dragon Ball Z and Frieza morphed into his fourth most vicious form and he looked like a skinny girl kind of thing. There's just these little tiny like two-legged creatures. They remind me a little bit of the creatures from I think it's the Doom video game series. There's a video game series where it has these little creatures on two legs and it looks like, you know, a brain for a head, and they have these little like teeth. That's what they reminded me of. Some video game. I think it's Doom, but it could be something else. These things don't look threatening. They are threatening, don't get me wrong. These things are vicious little shits, but they don't look it, and they're not as epically designed as the worms were. It feels like a downgrade to me when it comes to a new monster. Like, yeah, they're vicious. Yes, there's more of them. They kind of have that swarm mentality. Like, they're dangerous by the numbers, and they're dangerous singly too. Because, like I said, they are vicious and violent. But this time they can detect heat instead of sound, so they're susceptible to heat. And at one point, Earl like douses himself in CO2, so the creatures can't sense his heat and go attack him. So I found that pretty clever as well. But like I said, at the end of the day, I just felt like they're a downgrade to the worms, and that was kind of unfortunate to me. And then its charm, like I mentioned, like the whole charm of the first film is just completely missing from this film. Even like the romantic relationship with him and Kate, which one thing I will say I enjoyed and found really hilarious is how at the beginning of the film in his trailer or in his house or whatever, Earl has a poster of this model in her like early 20s or something like that. Pretty sure she's fully nude, but she's lying down on a beach or something and you can see like her perfect ass and like hair like down her shoulders and stuff. And Kate ends up being this girl a couple decades later, or 1.5 decades later, however long, slightly older. and he notices her, and then she lies down and she like does the same pose as the poster girl, and then he clicks and it's like, oh, you're her, awesome. So he like met his fantasy girl essentially. That made me laugh, and I found that funny. And we have also Bert back, but we don't have Heather back, which is only like half the duo, because with those two characters, again, their whole banter back and forth between Bert and Heather, and like they're like the gun-wielding duo. You know, you only get Bert and it's like, okay, that's cool, but it's not epic like it was, you know. But Bert's back, and it's the same actor. It's the same actor playing Earl, which is awesome. And he comes, you know, gun-wielding again, except this time he brings a trailer full of guns, and then he goes all gun-wielding and all like Desperado style with fucking Earl, and they're taking down all the little leggy creatures, and it's fun. It's just a much weaker version of a great action creature feature spectacle like Tremors was. Which, you know, you can't really help it. It's the sequel syndrome kind of thing. They try to go big with a lot of things. Unfortunately, those going bigger things went smaller for me, literally, with the little creatures. But it is what it is. And it's got its fun moments. It's still got your, like, pole vaulting from building to building and whatnot. And great atmosphere and practical monsters, which is always good. They look like dodo birds too. I wrote that down here. Dodo birds is what these creatures look like. I like how they are claimed to be asexual, and they kind of just multiply and reproduce, and they barf up their offspring. It's kind of gross. This film goes into like the gross out side of things, which is nice. Or which is cool to see, kind of thing, because gross out humor and gross out action is always cool. And I love how at one point they're also using doors as defense, because the doors are neutral to the heat, so when they cover themselves up with doors and just crawl like this through the desert, they're not able to be seen because they can't sense their heat or whatnot. which I don't know how they can't sense their heat from around the doors, but it is what it is. I don't think about that kind of stuff too much. The CO2 thing was funnier though. But that's about it. It's still a Tremors movie that doesn't hold nearly as much charm as the other one did, but for all its downgrades and, for lack of a better word, flaws, it's still all right. It's not a, it's not a sci-fi film by any means. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the review, it feels like a well-produced film. So it could have been way worse than it was, and I'm not complaining about the movie at all, but I'm obviously here to mention what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. And it's a pretty mixed bag with those two things in this film. The first one, by far, I recommend over Tremors 2, but we will get to the rest, and we will see if there's any more downgrading or upgrading, depending on what you're comparing to this franchise. Till then, subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you'd like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.